What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, Panthers Advice. Today, man, we got a lot to talk about. All right, now we're a little bit late on part 2 of the Blueprint episode 1. All right, this is going to go over Princely, Nick Scorton, how the Panthers managed to pull that off. Dan talks about first round Mcmillan. Potentially, he was going to trade back, but we'll see what he says. And then we're doing film study. Back into that, man. Stay tuned, man. Let's jump into this thing. First of all, talking about Princely Nick, how did it all come to fruition? And a little bit of fruition on the Bryce Young trade too, man. Let's play the video.
Day 2, the initial feel is, hey, we got to get some pass rushers. We knew that there was the potential for us to double dip as well. I'm going to say that Princely is going to be there in the third. Call him. I'm not going to risk it, but I'm calling him. I think it'll work itself out.
Dave Tepper is an unbelievable resource to have in the draft room. He is a trader by nature.
Now, it sounds like right there that Till has kind of dropped a little bit of a bombshell. It's like Tepper's the one who wants to trade. He wants to will and deal a little bit. And I think that's kind of where things kind of went south before these last couple of years. Is like, you look at the Bryce Young trade. I'm sure he wanted to trade for Bryce Young. Bryce Young was his guy. However, it seems like everybody in his circle was a yes man, right? I think the trade was good enough in itself without including DJ Moore. And like I said 1,000 times, why would you give up your number one receiver to bring in a franchise quarterback? It didn't make any sense. But you look at the last couple of years, you got Dan in a higher position than he was in. You got Brant Tillich, you got Dave Canales. I think the Panthers are slowly getting on the right track. And it's nice to know that, Tepper, it seems like he wants to make deals and he has the right guys around him that potentially won't let him do anything stupid. I mean, he is the owner and he has final say, but it seems like they give him more of a reality check, if that makes sense, man. Let's keep it going.
That'd be cool. To have him next to you, he's really there as a good sounding board, somebody that's really smart in his field of work, and somebody that, you can really bounce ideas off of from the business.
Excited that we drafted a good player at 8. I did feel that we had to do more for our defense.
So far, so good. So what are the odds right now? One of those.
I hope it does try to make it to our pick.
One of those 3 edge rushers. Yeah.
About 50-50.
I'd take that. 50-50.
I think the 3 edge rushers we're talking about is Donovan is a Rocky out of BC, if I'm not mistaken, JT out of Ohio State, and I think this one was Nick Scorton.
Donovan Ezeraku, defensive end, Boston College.
So one thing to look at right here is when Ezeraku went, is kind of when the run was going to start for edge rushers. And so he didn't go until really halfway into the second round. Panthers had the 51st pick. This was huge right here. The fact the edge rushers didn't start falling until, halfway into the second, especially given how deep it was. I thought you might see a run maybe towards the end of the first, maybe start of the second, but the fact it didn't really start till halfway towards or into the second, that was huge for the Panthers.
We've got a good trade out to Denver too.
Yeah, call Denver.
You're on the clock.
Okay. Cool. All right, we're good.
All right, cool. Thanks, Rich. Bye.
Is that done?
Yeah, it's done.
Let's go.
Boom. The fact they pulled off getting Scorton with the 51st pick is still semi-insane to think about, and Princely too, because both of these guys were top 5, top 7 preseason rankings, right? And then obviously as the season develops, guys will go up and down. But what a lot of people don't look at is the actual film, right? They all go by statistics. So the big thing with Scorton was he only had 5 sacks this year. Last year he had 10 sacks. So okay, he fell off in his play. Did he fall off, or was nobody else that good on that defensive line, so he was getting double teamed, right? That, and not even double teamed was he getting chipped. That's something to think about. So instead of just looking at the numbers, look at the actual film. The fact they pulled this off, whoo, huge, man.
How close were you to trading your pick?
Again, we're always going to do what's best for the organization, and we felt like if we could get a boatload of picks, a bunch of future picks that could really set us up for the future, that's something that we wanted to explore.
I think this right here is kind of a testament into Tepper and him kind of taking his hands off a little bit. Because the Panthers, I'm sure they had a few calls, right, as we saw in the blueprint, for that 8th overall pick. And Tepper could have easily said, oh yeah, we'll take that, we'll take that, we'll take that. Could have done any of these trades. But he chose not to. He chose to just sit, hands behind his back, didn't do anything. The Panthers, it seemed like Dan Morgan, Tillis, had a couple of things they potentially wanted, but nothing came to fruition. They ended up taking Mcmillan. I'm just happy to see Tepper wasn't too handsy in the trade. Let Morgan, let Tillis do their thing.
But at the same time, there was a lot of conviction in the building for T-Mac, and, we didn't want to lose our guy at the end of the day. So, that decision came down to, hey, it wasn't enough draft capital for a guy that we really liked and we see a big future for.
You're referring to Ted McMillan out of Arizona, the first receiver you took off the board there. Why him over everyone else, Dan Morgan?
Yeah, I think when you watch his tape, obviously the size, the catch radius, how smooth he is, some of the best hands that I've ever been around.
When Dan puts it like that, the Panthers don't have a receiver currently that is like this. That is smooth in the route running like Adam Thielen. The catch radius, right? Adam Thielen doesn't have that. He has the hands too. But he doesn't have everything like McMillan has. So when Dan puts it like that, you give Bryce Young another weapon. You saw what they did on defense this year, getting Princely, getting Nick. Hopefully we can kind of rebuild that secondary next year a little bit, depending on how it does this year. I kind of like where our 3 to 5 year plan is as of right now.
Jimmy Horn Jr. is another kid that I spoke to before the draft. Did you chat with Prime?
I really wanted him. We wanted him as an organization just to add another player with speed and dynamic traits. And again, he's a great kid as well.
We talked about McMillan and everything that he is. He's tall, good catch radius. He's smooth. He's got hands. He's something that the Panthers didn't have before. Now they can kind of check off that box, right? I think Jimmy Horn's the same way. You never had anybody who could basically stretch the defense, right? Where teams had to be careful where they place the safety over. Before, you could kind of place it over Coker. You can kind of place it over Thielen. That was it, right? Leggett never took that next step, right, this past year. So the safety could kind of play both. And if you pressed Adam Thielen and you had good pass rush, you probably didn't have to play safety over the top on his side. You could probably play it over Coker. Now you bring in McMillan. Now you bring in Jimmy Horn. I mean, the Panthers, they do have a plethora of receivers, right? But you take one of those guys out, the safety still has to be careful who they play, right? Whether it's Jimmy Horn on this side and you got Coker, or it's Leggett and you got McMillan. I mean, the Panthers, man, the offense is starting to click. So let me know your thoughts on that. Now we're going to jump into film study over Mr. T. Wharton. So as we jump into the film study today, talking about Tershawn Wharton, one thing I want to point out right away is the versatility. Now, yes, he's playing with Chris Jones. And when I say that, you're probably like, okay, that might be why he got some good numbers. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is like this. You're never going to see Chris Jones willingly line up playing the 2 wide. Where you're going to see Chris Jones play majority of the time is your 3 tech playing outside guard of the shoulder, which means if he's playing that and there's no nose tackle right there, most likely you're going to have Mr. Tershawn Wharton playing 2 wide, right? Because if Wharton's playing over here, I mean, center's going to pick him up, guard's going to chip him, work second level, work up there, right? Somebody's got to play inside. And I can tell you right now, Chris Jones does not want to play inside, right? He wants to play outside. He wants to give himself the best match. Now, right here, what are we looking at? Let's take a look. I just got done talking about, okay, very rarely will you see them both play the 3 tech, right? Outside shoulder of the guard. But look right here, all right? It's 3rd down right here. They're going to send Leo in right here. So Leo's going to come in. That's going to take the center's attention. So now Tershawn and Chris Jones both get the one-on-one. And what I think the Chiefs do right here, if I'm not mistaken, let's let it go real quick. You're going to see ball snapped right here. Now you see Chris Jones, he beats his guy. But what I want you guys to watch is watch Wharton right here. He has full control over the guard. I mean, really watch this real quick, all right? He's got full control over the guard. So what I'm guessing the Chiefs are trying to do, all right, is basically you send one edge out here deep. All right, you got one coming across, and then you got really your linebacker and Chris Jones shooting up the middle. Now, if he escapes that, right, bang, all right, if he escapes all that, you got Wharton right here playing the spine. Take a look what happens right here. You're going to see Wharton has full control over the guard right there, right? The second bro takes off, Wharton, bang. Now, if you're watching this from a certain angle, you're like, okay, you know, Wharton gets beat at the line of scrimmage. No, Wharton is controlling his guy, right? You got Leo and you got Chris Jones, both blitzing up the middle, two guys on the outside, right, coming in. Wharton, man, don't sleep on him. Watch the film, all right? Let's keep it going. Next play we're going to look at is against the Saints right here. Now, you got Tershawn Wharton lining up as a 3-tech. Chris Jones is out. That's why now Wharton can kind of play that 3-tech. Now, with that being said, is Wharton the best run stopper? No, but he's also not the worst. I think sometimes it gets blown a little bit out of proportion because like I just got done saying, he is naturally a 3-tech, right? But when you have Chris Jones, somebody else has to play inside, right? Is Wharton Chris Jones? No. Is he pretty dang good? He is, right? So let's run that back real quick. If you can take a pretty good player, right, and play him as a 2-eye sometimes and play him as a 3-tech, you're going to do that. And right here, he's playing as a 3-tech. I'm like, that rips right through. I mean, he's taking down the quarterback. Right, and then right here against the Raiders, once again, playing that 2-eye look. Now this time, Chris Jones actually gets double teamed. Let's run that back real quick. All right, that's how much of a factor Chris Jones was sometime. Now, if you're a little like kind of playing devil's advocate, you're like, okay, Wharton gets the one-on-one because Chris Jones gets double teamed. You know, can we really expect that next year, or I guess this upcoming year? The answer is yes. You got to remember who the Panthers got. They got Bobby Brown. They already have Derek Brown. So you got Bobby Brown in the middle. You got Derek Brown on the other side. And you got Tershawn Wharton over here. I mean, whoo, man. And you got to think about it like this. Do you know how many times Panthers defenders last year, as far as on the line, had a one-on-one and did absolutely nothing? Now we're going to get guys who, with that one-on-one, can make an immediate impact. Let's keep it going. That's going to wrap it up. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Stay tuned. More content coming soon. Panthers Vice is out. Peace.